Hockey is confusing, but we love power systems. They're important. We've seen them out there in the anime verse and we constantly compare them. They're like the ass versus titties of the anime world. Actually, that's Admiral versus Yonko, but now you understand a bit better. They more or less do the same things in every verse, but they're somewhat different. Like cursed energy, Rook, servants, chakra, spiritual pressure. You can't forget panties in prison school and Mishoku Tensei, Nen, stands. They go on and on and on. But the absolute best one out of all is none other than Haki and Devil. Okay, who am I kidding? That's actually Dragon Ball Super Cap, and I can't say with a straight face because it is not the best. All right, might be the most creative, and the combination of Devil Fruit and Haki combined might be the best. But individually, Haki, nah. You see, I realized Haki wasn't the best one day when I was watching One Piece with my cousin. He's somewhat of a meathead, but he enjoys One Piece. You see, he connected with Yamato when he thought she was going to be a he for the rest of the series, but boy, do I have news for him. He was anime only, and we finally got to Luffy unlocking acock. Good thing I mentioned acock, because I was excited from the sheer power and aura Kaido and Luffy was showing. I had to calm down because in the midst of this display of violent rage, my cousin asked me, what was acock? He was a noob. He has no idea how these things work, so here I am, a One Piece pro, or so I thought. I could have simply said Advanced Conquerors or Call of the Conqueror, but I predicted the next question, and I was stumped because what exactly does it do? Acock can be confused for many things, kind of like Yamato in a male bath. You gotta think about it a bit before you answer. That's the last Yamato joke. Until the next one, I promise. For us to understand acock, we have to first understand Haki and how the power system has grown over time. From humans to fishmen to Oni to even potentially aliens, the One Piece world has a variety of strong races to choose from, and collecting the best fighters around the world to join your crew has to be an amazing feeling. Well, enjoy that feeling with today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends is a free-to-play tactical turn-based MMORPG with amazing graphics and over 80 million downloads. Choose between 650 completely unique champions that come from many different factions, with literally billions of ways to customize and build your champions. And now let's talk about Live Arena with Professor Death Knight. Yo, Death Knight, how do you feel about banning champions in Live Arena?
I hate it. I wish everybody could play. Back in school, I would always get picked last. This is just like when someone pointed at me and said, "You can't even play and your bones look weird." But you know, rules are rules, so.
Also, Death Knight, what's your battle strategy for Live Arena?
Well, everyone thinks I'll go in fighting, but nobody expects my charm. My best strength is the gift of gab. So when they try to attack, I'll just be like, "Nice weather we're having, eh?" Nobody will see it coming.
And did I mention champions? Do you want a free legendary champion? Silly question. Of course you do. Especially when they're as cool as this. Check out Sun Wukong, Raid's take on the mischievous monkey, coming as a free legendary, you guessed it, champion. All you've got to do is log into Raid on 7 different days between August 22nd and October 23rd to get your hands on this awesome champion. New players only now, you have a chance to get one of the best epic champions, Stag Knight, as well as a skin for him designed by John Tron himself. Just use the promo code JTSKIN before October 7th. Also, if you click my link or scan the QR code right here, you'll get a free starter pack with this cool in-game loot. So again, just hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. So let's start right from the beginning. You see, One Piece is a story about Goldie. Alright, I'm just kidding. Let's jump to the first display of Conquerors Haki, Shanks versus the Arm King. I mean the Sea King. The old running joke in our community is that the powers that be gassed Shanks to high Skypiea, and he couldn't take out a big fish that Luffy took out casually. Where was the acock then, huh? Okay, time for random One Piece jargon breakdown. Acock, meaning the advanced color of the Conqueror and advanced Conquerors Haki. Typically mentioned and argued about when Black Lightning or any advanced form of Conquerors Haki infusion is utilized, i.e. Luffy versus Kaido or Roger versus Whitebeard. Acock for these typically not only have lightning, but the literal power is dripping off of their blade or weapon. Now you see, the thing with Haki is that it's almost like a prop, and based on how you use it is how people are somewhat scaling these characters. But Haki's inconsistent and sometimes downright confusing. But I don't think any Haki's more inconsistent than observation Haki in the story. It's like LeBron at the free throw line. You really just never know. Let me give you an example. Not LeBron missing a free throw in the fourth quarter, silly, but of how Haki can confuse the viewer. Let's go all the way back to Alabasta when Zoro's fighting Mr. One. Zoro was getting abused. I'm talking about I went back to check to make sure Mr. One's real name wasn't Ike Turner. He was beating Zoro bad, but mostly because Zoro could not hurt him. In comes the breath of all things. First off, what is that? You can't just start making shit up. Well, actually you can, but what is that? Does this apply to everyone or just the 3 pure swordsmen in the story? And one of them is dead. Now this is explained later in Wano, almost 1,000 chapters later, that it's essentially a high tier sword skill. Zoro in the dire moment unlocked an advanced usage of Haki, which allowed him to tap into what it seems like Luffy learned in Wano from Hyogoro. He had the same explanation as Zoro sensei, and now we know he skedaddled out of Wano, and the dead giveaway is, well, Shimotsuki village. So I don't know, from my calculations, the first straw hat to actually unlock unlock advanced Haki wasn't Luffy, but... Okay, that's not important, but how about this? Haki is a foreign concept to even grizzled losers who fled the New World after losing to future Yonko, or rather current Yonko. Why isn't Haki a thing that they were adept in? This boy Crocodile went on and on about how he had mastered his fruit. Well, my boy, how about you master Haki? Or some way that Luffy with a sprinkler can't completely rain on your parade, or dampen your mood, or when, you catch the drift. But I know Oda was still working out the kinks of the power. Well, today we're getting kinky because it's time, okay? Crocodile was 44 years old when he fought Luffy, and Moria was 48. These two grown-ass men, actually, I'm not sure if I can say that because Crocomom has a lot of meat to it. We'll move past that. These are two grown vets who have been to the New World, fought Kaido and Whitebeard, but this walking magnum had you in a tizzy. Now again, we know it's to balance the series because Logias, even Crocodile being afraid of a water gun, were dominant pre-time skip. They were bullying everyone else for no reason. I mean, Smoker and Marineford was on Luffy's ass just because he knew Luffy couldn't hit him. Kizaru was looking like Lionel Messi, sending Luffy to Whitebeard since Luffy couldn't do anything. Akainu showed Luffy where the One Piece was by putting an X on his chest, and Aokiji gave him the hug of love and had him cool down for a few hours. I mean, even Enel, but listen, this isn't even a plasma take, but Luffy's ability saved him. If Luffy was not rubber, Enel is having safe intercourse with Straw Hat Rubber for a month because it would be over for him. Enel was more powerful than Luffy, but Luffy was the better fighter with an advantage. Back to Haki though, I understand its importance. You can't just have these intangibility merchants bullying the verse, you need balance. But to be honest, Haki, due to its limitations, can be quite boring sometimes, compared to Devil Fruits, I'd say. But that's kind of the point, I think. Not for Haki to be boring, per se, but for there to be a balance. We saw with Big Mom versus Law and Kid, and then Luffy versus Kaido, there's more than one way to skin a Yonko. And I know what Kaido said about Roger not having fruit powers whilst being at the top, and then kind of comparing the two to conclude how Haki transcends everything. An interesting conclusion, but like a lot of what Kaido says, no correlation, because for real, bro, what does Kaido know? Truly, saying Roger became the greatest due to Haki is lazy and meatheadish from Kaido. But Kaido, even with legendary one-liners, is a lot of meatheadish. Roger Watts being one of the best Haki users ever, we think he was a charismatic demon who looked after his people. But if he didn't look after his people and was just terrorizing the seas with Haki, I don't think asking Whitebeard for Odin would have gone as smoothly. But don't get me wrong, Haki can be fun. I get a tingle every time Luffy used Conquerors. It's hype and it's grown past fodder control to, well, now an ability to even the odds somewhat among the top tiers. But before we dissect acock and what it is though, let's talk about Ryo for a second because man, this word and usage actually drives me crazy. Okay, if you ask the casual One Piece fan, they would tell you Ryo is just another name for Haki, which is true, but it's not all the way correct for all intents and purposes. Yes, Ryo is what people of Wano call Haki, but we aren't the people of Wano. If I ask you what Ryo is, you better explain the advanced application or you're a casual merchant. And that's that, I don't make the rules. I'm joking, mostly, but that debate drives me crazy. We know Ryo is Haki. My meathead cousin know this. So when I bring it up, I am specifically referencing the advanced application of the flow the people of Wano have specialized. So essentially, Ryo is another name for Haki, but it does present an actual advanced application as shown by Sentomaru, but it's not just regular Haki, but advanced. Is that clear enough? Yeah, confusing, but that's Haki, right? But even with Ryo, there are two levels to this Haki application. As Hyogoro could use the standard version, while Luffy and Rayleigh could use this advanced application, which could remove handcuffs. Mind you, this is all called Ryo, which means Haki in Wano. It's a very useful and necessary power, but damn, could it be a bit clearer? And this brings us to advanced conquerors. As I explained earlier, acock. Let's have an experiment, shall we? When Garp uses Galaxy Impact and Kobe uses Galaxy Impact, are they both using advanced conquerors, or is Garp the only one using it, or neither? Answer below. We'll revisit this later. Conquerors Haki or Haoshoku Haki or the King's Disposition, all these are cool ways to say you can bully people with your willpower. Your spiritual pressure can knock people out. Your N is making people's hair fall out. This is the equivalent of what Conquerors Haki is. It was primarily used to dominate others and flex, to be honest, because if I walk into the club and I use Conquerors, I'm not leaving there alone. For Conquerors Haki users that dominate with their will, what if two of them clash? Well, typically it would create an insane shockwave that would knock others out or emanate black lightning. If they're powerful enough, they can split the sky like Luffy and Kaido, Shanks and Whitebeard, etc., etc. But let's talk about infusion. This is when a very few, according to Kaido, can infuse their weapons or fists with Haki to make it more powerful. It didn't work to kill Kinemon, but it's an amplifying technique and the most recent update in the One Piece power scaling meta. According to most, if you have it, you're strong. If you don't, you're mid. I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. I'm kidding, I don't agree with that at all. But this gives you a general idea of how it's viewed. This technique is not a gimmick. I'd be lying if I said that it was, because this thing as portrayed allowed Luffy to stop getting dominated by Kaido to then just getting dominated by Kaido a little bit. But this is where things get a bit tricky, as more than likely the Ryo that is used to defend without touching and attack without touching, combined with infusion, can lead to devastating attacks without touching your opponent, like how Whitebeard and Roger did, or even Luffy versus Kaido. But this can be misleading because you can infuse a weapon with conquerors and make direct contact. It seems like if you combine it with Ryo, it's more devastating, or you're just showing off, I don't know. But here's where it gets tricky when it comes to certain individuals. Let's use Zoro as an example. In the recent chapter, Zoro is fighting a feline, right? And Zoro's blades, they have flames on them. This is Zoro's King of Hell mode, we presume, that he gained from fighting King and from having Enma. But is this an advanced application of Conqueror's infusion? Is Zoro using his best form against a cat? Well, let's try to figure it out. In Zoro's fight versus King, he's having a nice gentle tug of war with Enma for the dominion of the Haki. And Enma was winning for a bit, let's be honest. But this was to help Zoro gain more control over his Haki, to help him bring out his true power. It was like a supplement, like a honey pack. So Zoro, after his abbreviated, somewhat disappointing yet satisfying flashback, realized that he had to continuously exude his Haki at a certain level. Zoro then, in the midst of doing that, was knocking out the fodder in the area, which proves he was now exuding conquerors, which confirms infusion. King even says, then you intend to become a king then, which is interesting because King did not have what it takes to become a king from what we know. Either way, but here's the difference. We see Zoro using King of Hell mode with infusion, but there is a noticeable black lightning emanating off of the blade. That is the feature that we see from all the people using Conqueror's Haki infusion. In the recent chapter, you don't really notice it until the final shot of Zoro. So it seems like these flames on Zoro's blade are indeed a byproduct of him becoming the King of Hell through exuding and infusing Conqueror's Haki. I know a bit too much, but the inconsistencies, they really don't stop. This is Haki. We have a fight of Luffy and Kizaru, right? This is Admiral versus Yonko. We've been waiting for this, but the conversation isn't just around these two. It's about acock, or infusion. Everyone is asking, where is it? Why isn't Luffy using it? Kaido did say in Gear 5, Luffy is somewhat casually using armament and conquerors, so maybe it doesn't have to be explicit. Is Oda going to explain the difference between Admirals or Yonko? Is just Conqueror's Haki infusion? I mean, I don't know, I guess we'll see, but in regards to Garp and Kobe, yeah, I didn't forget. In my opinion, they're both infusing their attacks, and that's why they're amplified as much, and they have so much power behind them. And AoE. I think showing Kobe with a bit of lightning emanating on his fist is showing he's on the way to Garp's level, and clearly his heir apparent. Haki is confusing at times, but boy, is it hype when they use it.